Hi everyone. So today is a different practice again. We are going to do more of a restorative practice today. I don't know about you, but for myself, certainly as we progress through these uncertain weeks, I'm finding some of my energy kind of slagging along. So I decided that today I'm going to offer you up a more restorative practice. So if you've never practiced restorative yoga before, it's a really nice practice for the nervous system actually. It helps the nervous system kind of regulate itself. And especially in these days where we feel like we're constantly trying to work towards something, or maybe feeling like we need to do a little bit more. This can be a nice practice just to kind of allow yourself to settle into your body and just be in the moment. That's what our mindfulness is just being in the present moment and just accepting kind of where we're at in that moment, okay? So, we're a little bit high maintenance today. I do have a chair here. You're welcome to not have the chair. There are a couple of variations that we can do instead of using the chair. So you can have a chair nearby, or maybe just a little section of wall instead if you wanted. So chair is optional. I am going to be using it though. I have a rolled up yoga mat. If you don't have a yoga mat at home, maybe a nice thick blanket that you roll up into kind of this oblong shape would be appropriate then. Okay, so we're going to use it more as a prop than as our foundation today. I do have a yoga strap here. This one again, completely optional. You can substitute out a long scarf for it if you have that handy instead. And then a whole schwackload of pillows, different sizes and shapes if you've got that available, okay? So just making sure that you kind of have a lot of different options nearby. So just grab your throw pillows or the pillows off your bed. I just want to make sure that you can kind of allow yourself to be fully supported here. This is not a practice where I want you to feel intense stretches or muscle engagement. I want your body to literally allow itself to be supported by the props, which allows the nervous system just to kind of balance out then, okay? So it's almost like you're climbing into bed fully supported by everything around you, okay? And then I have a folded up blanket here. If you're a person who tends to get a little bit chilly during Shavasana, in particular in a regular class, I'd recommend having an extra blanket to cover yourself up. Obviously, I'm in cozier clothes today than usual, so if you did want to cover yourself up with a blanket as you make your way through the practice, I welcome you to do that as well. But do make sure that you've got one blanket that you can kind of use and fold as you need to, okay? They're kind of that nice in between having a pillow and no pillow, okay? So again, just for options here. So that's what I'm going to ask you to have nice and handy. So pause the video, go grab your stuff, set yourself up in your little pillow fort, and then come and rejoin me when you're ready, okay? Now to start with, I'm going to make a little bit of space here for myself to move around. Again, that pillow fort, nice and handy. And I'm going to start with my chair. Now this is where I said it's optional to not use the chair. So if you wanted, you could take yourself over to a wall. And what I'd suggest is you scoot your sit bones in towards the edge of the wall there where the baseboard is. And then you can swing your legs up the wall there. Now I'm going to do a variation of legs up the wall, which is legs on my chair. So if you are using the chair, just making sure that it's one where your knees can be somewhat 90-degree angle, okay? It doesn't have to be perfect. You can always give yourself some of those pillows underneath your calves if that would feel more comfortable. And then I'm going to give myself a little bit of pillow underneath my head here. And this is where we're just going to do that gentle little centering that we typically do at the beginning of our practice. So I want you to just allow yourself to come into, let's start with the room that you're in. Noticing the sounds in the room. Maybe there's other people in the room, or you've got pets in the room with you, noticing any sounds they might be making. Becoming aware of the sounds of the building itself, so maybe you can hear the ventilation. Become aware of the air in the room. Perhaps you can feel a gentle little breeze. What does the temperature of the air feel like for you? Do you need to use that blanket that you've got beside you and cover yourself up? Now can you narrow your awareness a little bit more into your own body? Becoming aware of your breath. The sound of your breath. What about the quality of your breath? Is it a deep breath or is it more shallow? Do the inhale and exhale feel equal? Does it feel like it's enough of a breath, or maybe do you need to welcome it to be a little bit deeper? Now, as we go through our practice today, because it is a slower and more quiet practice, you might begin to notice that your mind wants to wander, and that's okay. Our mind was created so that it can multitask, and that's what it naturally wants to do. But for the next 50 minutes or so, can you maybe gently and without judgment bring your awareness back to your breath, back to your body, and back to your practice? Let's take a full inhale. And a complete exhale. Starting to wiggle through your fingers and your toes. If it would feel good, you can give yourself a nice big full body stretch here. And then slowly, if your legs are up the wall, start to bend through your knees, bring them in towards your chest. And we can do the same here with the chair. Just really gentle and slow movements today. And slowly making your way onto your side body. And then let's use helping hands, coming back up to a seated position. All right, now this next pose is going to use the chair here, but I do have an alternative if you don't have a chair nearby, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take the blanket, the folded up blanket, and just give yourself a little bit of cushion on the front edge of that chair there. Now I'm going to thread my legs underneath the chair. You can choose to take your legs wider if that's more comfortable. I like to use a little bit of height underneath my sit bones, and everyone's going to be different with the amount of height that you put there, okay? So if it feels like too much of a forward fold here, give yourself a little extra height. Maybe you need a little bit of extra support underneath the knees as well, okay? The thing about restorative practice, the more props, the better it feels, honestly. So just give yourself the permission to explore what does more props look like and feel like for you. So maybe what you can do is take that rolled up mat underneath your knees here, taking some of that stretch out of the back of the thighs, because again, this is not about finding more flexibility, it's about your nervous system. So we want the nervous system to be fully supported. All right. Now I also have some blocks here that are nice and handy. So if you've got those hardcover books that I always recommend, if you don't have blocks, then maybe you place those underneath your forearms here, or maybe pillows are enough. So I've got this little cushion here, and my forehead's just going to come down onto that, okay? So it doesn't look like much. I want you to just take yourself into this forward fold and see how that feels for you. Now, if you do not have a chair, you won't be able to use the your homemade bolster here, your mat underneath your knees, but you can always put pillows there. And what you'll do is you'll take your bolster at an angle, take your folded up blanket over the end of your bolster, and just find that balance there for yourself, okay? So both of these are very appropriate. Listening into the shoulders and the spine. And finally the breath. If you're needing to support yourself in any way extra, please give yourself the permission to do so. And each pose today is going to be held for a few minutes. So really ensuring that as you enter into the pose, we've got that support and adjusting as you need to. Taking that full inhale. Sign out your exhale. Gently supporting yourself with your hands as you bring yourself back up to a seated position here. So if you were using the chair, just kind of pushing the chair out of the way, as we're not going to use it again for the next little while here. So now let's come down onto our backs. And for this next one, I'm going to use my strap. If you have a scarf nice and handy, you can use that. Or maybe even your blanket is going to be enough for you, and you can use it kind of as a strap if you wanted to go that route as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down onto my back. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a pillow here. I'm going to start with both of my knees bent. And then taking one knee in towards my chest, I'm going to take the end or the strap over the ball of my foot. And just gently extend it up towards the ceiling here. So this is a little bit of a hamstring stretch. But again, I don't want it to be really intense. So we're just going to allow there for it to be a little bit of stability here, or a little bit of balance, I should say, between that push up of the leg and the pull down of the strap. Now, if it's okay for you to extend your opposite leg forward, I welcome you to do that. But again, it's not really about the stretch. It's more about allowing the weight of the leg to press down into the pelvis, which helps to kind of soften some of those muscles through the low belly and low back that we tend to maintain some of our tension through. All right. See if you can soften your shoulders downwards here, even though you are holding onto the strap. So this one I'm not going to hold quite as long. And whenever you're ready, let's bend through that knee. Release the strap from the bottom of that foot. Just take a moment, noticing how things feel from one side to the other. And then as you're ready, opposite knee comes in towards your chest. Strap goes over the ball of your foot. And then again, just extending it upwards. Not worrying about straightening through the knee or anything. Choosing what's appropriate, whether you extend the opposite leg or not. Heavy elbows, heavy shoulders. Notice if there's areas of your body that really want to engage here, and can you allow for a little bit of softness through those areas? And again, whenever you're ready, bending through that knee, releasing that, and just taking a moment before we move on. All right. So now this next pose is going to need either your rolled up mat or a rolled up blanket. Everyone's going to be very different in the height that they're going to need here. So a mat works okay for me. For other people, that might be too intense though. So really listening in once you get into this posture, and if it's just too much lift, try having a rolled up blanket in place of it, okay? And what I want you to do is that space between your bottom ribs and the top of your pelvis, that's where I want you to have the bolster here. Okay, so I'm going to call this bolster now. So that's where I want your waist to rest on the bolster, okay? So my pelvis is underneath it, and then my ribs are going to be above it here. And I'm just going to allow myself to be supported, bringing myself into a supported place here with a blanket or pillow. I'm going to get a different prop. And then just seeing if you can find this place here where your spine can feel nice and long. So it doesn't feel like your waist is being lifted up towards the ceiling and you're going into a flexion up towards the ceiling with your spine. Your spine just feels nice and elongated. And then again, we're just going to allow ourselves to be supported here. I like to rest my top hand and arm just on top of my body, but if it's more comfortable to be in front of you, maybe on a block or something like that, lots of different ways to support yourself. And then again, just returning to your breath. Let's take a full inhale here. Sign out your exhale. Using helping hands here. And we're going to go over to the opposite side. Now, just because you had the props in one spot on that side doesn't mean that they're going to be appropriately placed on the other side. So be open to changing things up a little bit. Maybe the height of your bolster needs to change here. And again, just finding that position that feels right for you, doing all the wiggling and shifting around so that you can settle in here. Let's take a full inhale here. And a complete exhale. Whenever you're ready, using helping hands again, bringing yourself back up to a seated position. Now, I didn't say this at the beginning of the practice, but I probably should have, is that if there's any poses that feel really good to you and you just wanted to stay a little bit longer, I welcome you to do so. I'm not staying in a scientifically proven amount of time in each pose, okay? These are just kind of guidelines. And so if you wanted to stay for 5 minutes or even longer in each position, pause your video as you want to and just stay and enjoy it. Okay, this is your practice. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into a supported reclining position. So you can use pillows underneath your bolster here. Again, maybe it's a couple of blankets that are going to be your support. So just finding a reclined position here. If you need to, putting another pillow in this space here as well. All right, so that is going to come up against the back of your pelvis, okay? So that bony plate at the base of your spine, your sacrum, that's where I want the end of your bolster to go to. And we're just going to find this position here where we're going to be supported. I'm going to give myself a little bit extra here. There we go. All right. And now I've got these little blocks here, so I'm going to give myself one underneath my head for a little bit less extension through my neck. Maybe it's a pillow for you. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend my legs outwards here. And I'm just going to take a moment here in this position. If your elbows don't reach the floor, placing some pillows underneath your elbows to give yourself a little extra support there is always nice. Now I'm going to keep one of my legs extended, and then the other leg, I'm going to bend that knee inwards so that my foot comes up onto the floor. And we're going to come into what's called a supported tree pose. So I'm going to take that bent knee out towards the side of the room here, giving it a little bit of support here so that it doesn't feel like it's too much external rotation for me. And then again, I'm just going to find that position that works best for me. Now, there's not a lot of changing that I want to make in my position, but for some of us, maybe a little bit of support underneath the pelvis. So maybe that folded up blanket goes underneath your pelvis here to give yourself a little bit of extra cushioning if it feels like things are weighing down a bit too much. Seeing if you can feel that sensation of your shoulder blades wrapping around your bolster behind you. So we can find this beginnings of opening up through the chest and just softening into those areas. Taking a full deep inhale again. And a complete exhale. If you'd like, you can help that knee back up to center. Or maybe it just feels good for you to start to extend through the leg and take it straight outwards. Pausing here with both legs extended. And then we're going to switch it up. So opposite leg draws in. Placing any props that you need over on the opposite side. Again, one side might need a little bit extra propping. And just finding your way to that comfortable position. Check in with your back. Is there any changes that you need to make in the bolster, through your neck? Or do you feel fully supported here? Let's take that full deep inhale. Sign out the exhale. And then again, whenever you're ready, bringing that knee back to center or extending the leg forward. Now there is the option to pause the video here and do a bound angle pose. So that would be with both knees drawing in, bottoms of the feet come together, and then the knees come nice and wide. Optional to do that. For a lot of us, that's going to be too intense though to stay in a reclined position like that for a long period of time. Okay, so I'm going to skip it, but if it feels or sounds appropriate for your body, I welcome you to do it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come into another reclined position, but you will need to change how your props are here. Okay. So for this one, what you're going to want is at least one pillow for your head. We're going to take our bolster so that when we lie back, it's going to be just underneath the shoulder blade. So if you think about where your bra strap level is, okay, I want you to imagine that level being at the top of your bolster here. Now, because we are going to be in our recline position for a little while, I'm going to take this folded up blanket and place it between my pillow and my bolster. For most of us, that's going to be enough support for the shoulders here, just so that they're not dipping down too much towards the earth. So play with the height of that. If you get into this position and it just feels like it's too intense, give yourself a little extra height. Maybe it means 2 blankets or a thinner pillow here, okay? And so I'm just going to support myself with my hands here as I come down onto this bolster. I'm going to start with my knees bent. And so my shoulders are going to soften down onto this blanket. And I'm going to use 2 pillows here for my head. And then I'm going to take my arms out at about shoulder height, okay? Now this is a variation of our fish pose in yoga, which is quite a deep chest opener. So if this feels too intense, because we are going to be staying here for a while, I want you to find a way to support your body a little bit extra, okay? Maybe that means a smaller bolster. Option to extend the legs forward. Again, for a lot of us, that's going to be too much, okay? So if that's the case, just keep the knees bent. Knock your knees in towards one another with the feet nice and wide. And then we're just going to allow the tops of the shoulders to settle a little bit more. Back of the neck to be nice and long here. Check in with your jaw, your eyes. See if you can soften into those areas a little more. Taking that full deep inhale. And complete exhale. As you're ready, rolling over to one side to make your way off of this. All right. So we are going to reset our props again. Now this time what we're going to do is we're going to have a couple of props that will be off to one side and a couple of props that will be off to the other side. So I'm going to take my larger pillows onto the side that's going to be in front of me, okay? So we're going to come into a spinal twist. And the other ones are going to be behind me here. So now come down onto your back. And what I want you to have is to have some pillows that are going to support this shoulder here. So kind of wiggle them in towards your spine a little bit. I'm also going to want one for my head. Like I said, lots and lots of props today, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my knee in towards my chest. So the side that's supported underneath my shoulder, that knee is going to draw in towards my chest. And then I'm going to draw it across my body onto those pillows. We're going to roll over onto the outer side of the opposite hip. Wiggle those props underneath your shoulder a little bit more if you need to. I like to extend this arm out in front of me. And then my top hand is just going to rest on my hip here. If your foot kind of feels like it's dangling in midair like mine is, it might feel nice to place a little bit of height underneath your foot there. So maybe those books or blocks if you've got them handy. Completely optional though. If you're okay with your foot just kind of dangling, then that's okay too. Make sure that your leg is at an angle where you feel like you're not having to hold it, drawing it in here. And then again, we're just going to try to soften the top shoulders down towards the earth. And return your awareness to your breath. Taking one more full deep inhale here. As you exhale, let's draw that knee back across your body. Wiggling off of your props. Just take a moment on your back, noticing how that feels for you. And then making your way over to the other side. So just taking your props, switching them over to the opposite side of your body. Making all of the adjustments that you need to make. Again, feel like you're not putting out any effort. And just settling in. Full inhale. And complete exhale. Slowly unraveling. Noticing how it is that you feel in this moment in time. We are going to gently shift into our Shavasana. So if you really enjoyed the legs up the wall or legs on the chair from the beginning of the practice, I welcome you to return to that. I'm going to stay on my back here and just give myself a couple of extra props. I'm going to take my pillows under my thighs here. Blocks underneath my feet. And then I'm just going to gently cover up myself with my blanket. Supporting yourself how you need to. Returning to the beginning of practice, and how you felt. Can you notice some changes now? Can you become aware of your body a little bit more, your breath a little more? And although your mind will still be giving you some of that chatter, can you allow for a little more space between the noise? Giving yourself the permission to enjoy the quiet and the stillness in these moments. As always, taking your time, staying in your Shavasana for as long as you like. I hope you enjoyed the practice today. Namaste.